Good morning, and welcome to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you to the Thursday, June 4th edition of the WHTC Talk of the Town program. I'm Gary Stevens. We'll have a brief sliver of open line time following the 10 o'clock news block. Patty Vandenberg will join us in about an hour with what's new around Holland. We are expected on this first Thursday of the month to be joined in the 10:30 segment by Allegan County Sheriff Frank Baker, and then Sarah Donkersloot from Spectrum Health Zealand Community Hospital will be in the studio with us, for Wellspring, and that's coming up. But on this first Thursday of the month, we set aside time to talk about matters involving the City of Holland with the city manager. In this case, it is Keith Van Beek joining us in a Zoom connection. Keith, good morning and welcome back to Talk of the Town.
Good morning, Gary, and also to all the listeners out there. Good morning. Beautiful day today.
It continues the tradition that Juke had with Soren Wolf for many, many years, followed with Greg Robinson and with Ryan Cotton. And it looks as if, unless I'm reading things wrong, Keith, we're going to continue as more than just the 2 years you've been on the job. The city council sort of liked what you have done as the chief operating officer of the Tulip City and did something about that last night.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the top news of the morning or anything, but I do appreciate that. Very, very honored and pleased that council approved a contract with me, being the one employee, quite frankly, that serves council, and then the rest of the organization then flows through me. So I'm very pleased that signed a contract last night and honored to serve not only mayor and council, but the community. And then, like I said, any success that we have is because of the staff that we have here at the City of Holland.
I wanted to start with that because it's a natural progression with that. But also, Keith, the first contract was only for 2 years. Now it's a 5-year deal. It was almost as if the council and you sort of take a couple of years to see whether or not everything was going to work out just fine. Apparently, it just worked out fine.
Yeah, again, I'm very pleased. We go through a process where there actually was a 360 review, it's called, where employees evaluate how things are going with my leadership team. Council obviously does that, but community members also do that. And I think I was poked fun a little bit by Mayor Pro Tem Trethewey, where he said the person that was toughest in all of that was me and myself. Mike said there's a high bar here in the City of Holland, and I agree on that, and we're just thankful, and I look forward to continuing to serve.
If you got a question for Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek, no, you can't join the Zoom connection, but you can call us on the phone at 395-1450, 395-1450. And labor was a topic during last night's city council meeting. Before the meeting was a closed-door session, which is allowed under state law with the Open Meetings Act to discuss labor negotiations. And then during the meeting, there was a scheduled vote on the proposed tentative bargaining agreement between the city and its unionized public safety officers and public safety firefighters. Apparently all went well.
Yeah, we're just very pleased with the outcome. We're very pleased with the partnership that we have with the union. And as I always talk to our employees, I use the phrase where I say, I'm always going to think of you as employees first, and just that you happen to be in a union second. And that's not a slam on the union process in any way. But we're just so pleased to have a partnership with a fantastic group of employees. There were a lot of comments at council last night that the human capital that we have as an organization and the men and women that work and represent the city and serve the community are the most important things. So we were very pleased that this represents 2 contracts that were brought in before the expiration of the prior contracts. And Public Safety Director Matt Messer indicated that he could not recall in his 20-plus career in the City of Holland that we've ever had a situation where both of those contracts were completed prior to the expiration of the prior contract. So again, we're just really thankful for what those employees do for the organization, but more importantly for the community, and that we were able to cement that agreement and move on with the great work that they do.
A concern and a question that needs to be brought up, this collective bargaining agreements, and we'll put it in a plural term, being conducted and done, even though we are still in the midst of the COVID-19 situation, and city revenues will certainly be impacted by that, but yet this agreement did go through, and maybe it's a good sign. Maybe, hey, we hope we don't have to revisit this issue between now and the end of the new collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah, much of the conversation on one hand, it would have been hard to do negotiations in the midst of COVID. And quite frankly, we had the large components completed before we entered into the COVID situation. There was just some finalization that occurred, as we went completely in the stay-at-home order and all those types of things. We did definitely have conversations with council because as we look out at our budgets, and certainly we're going to have negative impacts on our budgets. I think we've covered and talked about, Gary, where from our perspective, we're less worried probably, quite frankly, about this upcoming fiscal year that we're going to go into, but there's a lagging impact on property taxes in particular that we're concerned about for out years. But when we looked at it, we think it's a fair contract for the employees, but it's not what I would call a rich contract either, where so it's a good contract for the city also. And again, I think we just emphasized, and council definitely agreed, that it's an investment in our employees who do the service. So it was something that we felt was a good contract and also fits into the budget constraints that we expect to have in coming years.
If you got a question for Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek, he'll take it at 395-1450, 395-1450. Also, during last night's meeting, it seems it's an annual thing. First meeting in May, of course, is the budget meeting, and probably the first meeting in June is the annual let's go over the Community Development Block Grant Program. And there's a little bit of an extra twist because there is CARES Act money involved with that, and council had to do some votes along those lines as well.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Gary. I'm going to focus on kind of the new twist that we had this year. We always get Community Development Block Grant money, and that's a direct federal flow of money that comes to the city of Holland. And we always take a look at that money to target particular needs in the community. With the CARES Act funding, there was specific funding that is supposed to mitigate some of the impacts of COVID. And I'm just so proud of our team here at the city that partnered with local nonprofits. And what we did is we targeted housing and shelter and food insecurity needs. So that federal funding was made available to Good Samaritan Ministries to take a look at some current and some continuing housing needs that we think we have. And then there was additional money that was granted to Resilience, which is the newer name for former the Center for Domestic Violence. And then we partnered with Community Action House for food insecurity. So we're just really proud of that money coming and partnering with local nonprofits that really work with that need that we have in the city. We just think it was a very effective and efficient use of those funds.
395-1450 if you have a question for Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek, and let's get to a line that actually has somebody on it. 395-1450. there was some concerns about making sure that some of that money that the CARES Act was going to go to the cities, and apparently some, there's some finger pointing. Some in Washington are saying that, are saying, hey, the states hasn't done the job. States saying, hey, we can't. A lot of finger pointing, but at least we're getting some of that money in CARES Act coming to the city of Holland.
Yeah, this money is specifically targeted for, and we think it worked really well, where we're targeting for need in the community. So it's not money that would stay in the city or otherwise backfill some of the other funding issues that we might look into. I would join in the chorus of local officials that would say that we do think that the money that's going to the state is really getting stuck at the state and is probably filling holes at the state, which I support and understand that those do exist. But otherwise, all that CARES Act money, there really is no flow of money to local governments at all to take a look at the services that we provide. So I hope that is a conversation that continues at the federal level. I don't think we need it at some of the amounts that have been throwing around, but we do believe that, particularly in those out years, Gary, we would like to see some money that can patch some holes in some of our operational needs. We're particularly concerned about road funding and some of the things that we would like to, that we'd otherwise have to set aside as far as making investments in parks and all of those amenities that really we think makes Holland a place of quality for residents.
395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek.
Good morning. I was wondering, I see reference to the DDA quite often, and I was wondering who makes up that group, or is there a board, or how is that, who is the authority? Thank you.
Thank you and appreciate the call.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm going to actually give you two answers for the price of one. We not only have the Downtown Development Authority, but we also have the Principal Shopping District. And both of those entities, the membership is made up of the property owners, but also the tenants and the business owners that are in those districts. And there's a lot of times misunderstanding and confusion that somehow the city specifically puts a lot of money into the downtown area. And the reality is the DDA and the PSD assess themselves or allow themselves to be taxed a higher rate, and they pay the money into those services, and then they make decisions such as additional infrastructure that they want down there, or marketing, or the staff that's pretty minimal from the city side, the staff that helps all of those things run with the events and the coordination that we do there. So the membership is made up of, again, those people that are running those businesses downtown, which we think is appropriate because they're really directing funds that they're paying just themselves, so that we can have the beautiful downtown that we have.
395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek.
Yes, I'm calling back because I'm wondering who the actual people are, like the DDA. Is there a board, or is it employees, or is there? How do you get input into there? Is there a board, and if so, who are they? Thank you.
All right, appreciate the call. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm not going to try to remember all the names right on the top of my head, but those are all public meetings. In fact, I know that there was one this morning with the Principal Shopping District. So there's two ways that you can get the specific information, and then you can give them any feedback or input that you want. You can either get that at the city website,
which is, by the way, cityofholland.com, cityofholland.com.
Yes, thank you, Gary. So you can either find, because we have 30 some different boards and committees and commissions, so the DDA would be one of those. But then also with downtownholland.org, that is also a special place where we do various promotions, and they have the information about those groups there also.
Yeah, links to for both actually at cityofholland.com and downtownholland.org. It leads me to another question. A caller we had last week on Talk of the Town brought up the proposal of maybe blocking off 8th Street for a short period of time to enable downtown businesses to extend out beyond perhaps the sidewalk or the parking space. I know that parking space availability for establishments in the downtown district has been discussed in Zeeland, has been discussed in Saugatuck, and apparently it looks like Holland already has addressed this. But what about perhaps doing on a maybe a more permanent basis for at least a short time what we normally see when we do have the downtown street performer series, and that is blocking off 8th Street?
Yeah, so really that's a great bridge, Gary, between the caller and also the system that we have. So I believe that it's probably been a full month, if not more, that the DDA and the PSD that we were just referencing, the city, we had a conversation with them and asked them about when things begin to reopen, what things they would be interested in and what the city could partner with them as far as taking a look at some of those things, maybe making some of the outdoor space more available for them to open up safely and to utilize some of that public space. And they voted unanimously to allow for a process whereby they could use some of the sidewalk area, but also some of the parking area in front of their business, going through obviously some reviews and making sure that we have safety in place and all of those types of things with the city. And then last night, City Council took action approving that request from the PSD and DDA. Really what we took a look there is we have a temporary process by which we already allow that through different points of the year. And that's how the DDA and PSD took initial action. But because we want to do this kind of on a more longer than what I would call a temporary basis, Gary, there's always, what does temporary mean, right? We actually had council take action last night where we're extending that, where any downtown business that wants to do that can make process, and then we would have that in place going through the summer into the fall. So council approved that last night. So my understanding is we have about 8 businesses right now that are going through the process of putting those in downtown. And we're obviously making sure that that's being done in a safe way. I'm also going to mention that we had the discussion with the DDA and PSD about should we just additionally close down traffic on 8th Street. And that was also unanimously discussed by those property owners down there. And they don't believe that that's something that they want to do right now. We've communicated that's something that we'd be willing to have that conversation about, but I don't think there's going to be that interest, again, not so much driven by the city, but really driven by the property owners downtown, which we think is a good way to do it.
Certainly, this is more of a question for Matt Messer and the Holland Department of Public Safety, but certainly a concern as well, as you are the Chief Operating Officer, serving at the pleasure of council in the Tulip City, Keith Van Beek. But the ongoing situation involving the George Floyd death and the demonstrations that have been following that, it's been very peaceful in Holland. But unfortunately, other communities, not such the case. Certainly you and other staff members have to keep in mind that passions are, shall we say, very high right now in this particular situation.
Yeah, they are. And first and foremost, just want to say, certainly from my personal perspective, from the city of Holland, and as Chief Messer and Mayor Box said so eloquently in statements that they've made, just the brutality and the horrific most recent event in Minneapolis and the death of George Floyd just points to the need for improvement in our nation in so many ways.
Yeah, go ahead.
But also just so thankful to be part of a community and see our staff, and in this case, particularly our police department, be able to come together, and that we had 2 really good examples this weekend of peaceful protest, and we support protest, but also that it was peaceful. So certainly we are very prepared in the background because we want to make sure that the protesters are peaceful, but we also want to protect the protesters in many cases. So yeah, just proud to be part of this community over this weekend as we saw those events really go off very well.
We mentioned this, well, won't be able to mention this again this month as we did last month because we have one more caller before our segment is over. Good morning. You're on the line with Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek. Yep. Well, we do have time. Keith, we mentioned this last month, and if we didn't have the COVID situation, it might be one of our first topics. This time, again, it's been pushed to the back, but it's just as important, dealing with roads and dealing with high water. We've had a little receding. You mentioned it. It would have been probably top of mind if it wasn't in the current situation. What are we dealing with right now with the water situation? Because we had a lot of it in the month of April and into May, and then we had some more problems in the month of May too.
Yeah, so there's certainly a couple problem areas that we've addressed in a couple of different ways. We installed a system that I think residents are pretty happy about because Pine Avenue isn't having water back up on it anymore. And usually if residents just say, hey, I haven't seen that problem anymore, that means the city is doing a good thing. They don't understand what we've done or how we've done it, but we fixed a problem. So that's good. There was one area down in Beach Avenue along Lake Mac that we're addressing right now with a couple residents. But yeah, it's definitely a point of concern. We've had a couple weeks here now where we haven't had, particular incidents, but we're still monitoring it very closely. Thankfully, we're not like some other lakeshore communities that have been, overwhelmed by this issue, but we're watching it closely.
With that, Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek, I want to thank you for joining us today on WHTC's Talk of the Town. We'll put a link to the city's webpage, which is cityofholland.com. We put the audio podcast on our website at WHTC.com, and we'll have the video a little bit later on available through our Facebook page, and also a link on our webpage as well. Keith, thank you very much, and look forward to chatting with you again next month.
Thanks, Gary.
And that is Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC. Coming up, it is CBS News with Deborah Rodriguez, followed by WHTC News with Peg McNichol. And then we will have some open line talk of the town. Patty Vandenberg with what's new around Holland. And then it'll be Allegan County Sheriff Frank Baker.